Bear down, Chicago Bears. Matt Eberflus says that the Bears are going to go undefeated in 2024. Let me know in the comment section whether you think that one's going to be a thing or not. David Kaplan loses his mind, absolutely loses his mind on a 24-year-old kid. Let me clear that up one more time. A 50-year-old grown-up cried about a 24-year-old quarterback for his team because that quarterback didn't do exactly what he expected when he expected it. Make sure, by the way, that you hit the like button on the way in. Also, Shane Waldron had a press conference yesterday. We're going to talk about that as well. And we're going to ask the question, is Yannick Ngakoue worth bringing back for the season? And then what else does it look like? And then we're going to go over a mock draft and see how everything kind of lays itself out. Bear down. Let's get into it.
I can't wait till Friday. Everybody's getting sideways. Pass the bottle back my way. Everybody's getting sideways.
All right, guys, working on a new format here to try and improve the look and layout and everything of this podcast. Didn't work out very well with this one, by the way, but Eberflus came in with the beard today, yesterday during a presser, and he said that he's going to be calling a Bears defensive plays. So on Thursday afternoon, Chicago Bears Matt Eberflus spoke with the media. Aside from sporting a new slimmer look and a brilliant beard in the realm of all of the previous coaches who've come in with the beard, when Lovey came in with the beard and started winning big, and when Ditka came in with the beard and started winning big, he explained who will be calling the Bears defensive plays. A long-running joke among the Chicago sports fan is the correlation between facial hair. Look no further than Mike Ditka, Phil Jackson, and Joe Q. Now that Eberflus is changing up his look for his second season in Chicago, we can evaluate his tenure with metrics that truly matter: beard or clean shaven. Under clean shaven Eberflus, the Bears sport a 10-24 record. It's an abysmal mark that's downright depressing, but let's see what it's going to look like, how he's going to do in this new dichotomy with a sweet beard out here. So he said a perfect 17-0 season is what they're going to have. Now, is that true? I don't know. I don't know. I'm just kidding, by the way. You don't really come out and talk about that. But as the offseason continues, as we try to figure out what is going to happen what's going to happen when this draft takes place, and by the way, my mock today, I absolutely scored. Like, I put it this way. Fire Ryan Poles put me in charge because I just fixed the Chicago Bears and I made the greatest draft in the history of drafting people and drafting everything. And mine makes no sense, by the way, when you start to look at it, because there was just so many weird things that happened during this draft this morning. So, but shout out to Matt Eberflus and the beard, and let's go, baby. Also, do you think that a grown man can cry? Well, it turns out that they can cry like a baby. David Kaplan crying like just, what is wrong with this grown ass man coming out here crying about Justin Fields, right? And look, you cannot like Justin Fields. You could not like certain things about what a kid does, but this guy is crying on one of his shows yesterday, talking about, like, I mean, if you don't want to be, why would you want to follow the Bears? First of all, he doesn't owe them a follow to begin with, grown ass man. You're not required to follow your employer. And in fact, what he did is he took a little piece of this and he turned it into something more than it was. It was absolutely ridiculous. He says, well, we're going to unfollow everybody. You're still going to find out. You have a mute button. Why does it matter? He doesn't owe them a follow to begin with. And then why are you going on an interview right away? And then you're talking about it. Well, the interview was already scheduled, numb nuts. And by the way, he really is a numbnuts. He really is. He says, where you go in the interview? Well, that was only part of the question in the interview, and it was a small part of the question in a far-ranging interview. How dare he talk about who the best OSU player is? How dare he talk about who he thinks the best player in the NFL? How dare he talk about the hardest hit in the NFL? How dare he talk about the hardest hit? How dare he talk about the toughest person that he's ever played against? Like David Kaplan is turning this into a "what about me? What about me?" Quit being a bitch. I guess that's all I can say about that. Anyway, so to really summarize this, Dave Kaplan starts crying because Justin Fields says that he certainly wants to stay here and he wants to be and he wants to be a member of the Chicago Bears. Will he be? I don't know. I know it doesn't look really good when you say, "Oh, I think my favorite person is LeBron James." Man, okay, come on now, ugh. You can't say that in Chicago. But the other thing is, he doesn't owe anybody an apology for that. By the way, I mean, you grew up with LeBron James. I mean, hey, whatever. But and Dave did say something about that as well. But realistically, Dave's just crying because Dave cry because people pay attention when Dave cry. I paid attention when Dave cries. So Dave, you keep crying, you little baby, and if we ever meet, I'll call you baby to your face. I'm just kidding. I don't think you have a face, really. Anyway, let's move on here. Shane Waldron had his presser yesterday. Now, this, if you are a Justin Fields fan, there are enough pieces in here that should have you nervous if you are a fan of Justin Fields. And among it was one of the things that he said, why did you join the team? And a lot of people were surprised when he took the OC job, but he felt that he was going to be perhaps a lame duck coach, stuff like that, et cetera, et cetera. But he said having a unique scenario like this, where you get the 1st and 9th pick in the draft to get to be a part of an organization as storied as this one, I think all those things go into it. And like I said, when the season ends, every season is its own entity. You're not saying, I'm anticipating what's about to happen, and next thing you know, here you go, you're in the interview process. Like I said, it's just felt very comfortable, very quickly with meeting these guys, and then obviously having that piece of the draft puzzle where you get a chance to evaluate so many top players around the college games with those 2 high picks made it totally appealing. And really, it doesn't mean that they're going in any different direction. It doesn't mean that that they are or are not going with Caleb Williams. It doesn't mean anything. A lot of people are filling their opinion cards. Doesn't mean it's going to happen, but you can start to see a shift happening with a lot of these people, and to be able to evaluate the first player in the draft, that's something that Shane Waldron had no business doing. So you can't do too much. You can just kind of look from a distance because you don't have the number 1 pick. Well, now you have the number 1 pick, and you can decide what's best for the franchise. Now, I'm going to continue to say it until I'm blue in the face. You have to consider, or at least consider, if you're going to draft in that high position, if you're going to draft that number 1 pick, then is Caleb Williams better? This is the question that you have to ask yourself. And realistically, is Caleb Williams better than whatever the haul is that you can get for that draft pick? That really comes down to the question. And in my draft, by the way, what I did was I drafted down to the I swapped to I swapped to the number 2, the Washington Commanders, and they took Joe Alt, by the way, in this draft. So this draft is absolutely bonkers that I just did. Okay. But they took Joe Alt at the number 1 spot. And then I just said, you know what? Jesus Christ, this is ridiculous. So I'm trading down to the number 3 with the Patriots. And I picked up all of those draft picks. So you're going to see my draft is just absolutely chock filled, full of draft options here. So just so you guys know, it was wild, and like it wouldn't work that way, but you will see it when we do this. But Shane Waldron super excited because he sees all of the opportunities that are in front of him. He certainly feels like I think he certainly feels like this is the moment here where he makes a big deal, like where this is going to be like his game changing, defining sort of moment. You kind of got that feeling that, whether it be Caleb Williams, whether it be Justin Fields, whether it be Marvin Harrison Jr., Roma Dunze, whatever it is, he's got an opportunity that he's never had before, which is to really dig into these people and see what the possibilities are. Shout out to him for recognizing it. Now, let's move on to free agency here a little bit. Yannick Ngakoue. The question of the day is Yannick Ngakoue worth bringing back? And God damn it, I messed up that one. Waldron fascinated by draft prospect. I tried, guys. I tried. I'm trying to do a different thing here on this, but the NFL free agency is just around the corner. And the question is, Yannick Ngakoue, by the way, had I want to say 8 sacks or 8.5 sacks every year, at least leading up to last year. Okay. He ended up with 22 tackles, 6 tackles for loss, 4 sacks, and 7 quarterback hits in 13 games. They signed him to a 1-year, $10 million deal to shore up the league's worst pass rush, but unfortunately, he did not live up to the hype or the price tag. Despite a strong start in the season opener, he had his worst season as a pro. He only had 4 sacks, failing to total 8 sacks in the season for the first time in his career after having 19 and a half over the previous 2 years. Ngakoue came to the Bears with mixed expectation. He joined a pretty putrid defense, and his play was affected by that. However, as the year went along, they started to come together, and Ngakoue was a part of that. That was until he suffered a broken ankle in week 14 that sidelined him for the remainder of the season. It would have been nice to see what Ngakoue could have done in the full season. And really, to be fair, like what would he have done in the last 4 games? Like we continue to talk about how, Yannick Ngakoue maybe moving on, and we're looking at Chase Young, and we're looking at all these shiny bells and whistles. Well, the question is he worth $10 million to bring back? And I want to posit to say, actually, I think he is, because what we were using towards the end of the season, when we were having a very nice time, if you will, when we were really starting to coalesce and come together as a defense, was DeMarcus Walker. And that's not great. I mean, it should be recognized that DeMarcus Walker, for all that he is a solid NFL player, he's not even Yannick Ngakoue. So the guy that you really brought in to be that big ticket, that big deal, he didn't come out as a big deal. So the Bears have a pressing needed edge rusher. And what do you do? So the possibility exists outside of Montez Sweat and DeMarcus Walker. Who is there, right? So it's not likely that you're going to bring him back because of the amount of money that it's going to cost, but it is possible. Is there a case to bring him back? He had a statistical worst year, but the new roster is going to be way better. They're going to have and by the way, I don't mean to say, and I wouldn't imply that Yannick Ngakoue is actually going to be, I don't think the Bears are leaps and bounds above where they were before, but they are better than they were before. And it's going to be because the young team is aging a little bit and getting into their roles. Eric Washington probably, remember, you don't have much of a defensive staff last year, so you don't have a lot of focus. Jalen Johnson even famously come out, and I've repeated this over and over again, by the way. Make sure that you hit the like button on the way in and help subscribe to the channel. Helps push me up in the algorithm every single day, and it doesn't cost you anything to do. The thing is, coming off of his worst year, Jalen Johnson said, well, we didn't really practice situational stuff. We didn't practice for jet sweeps and things like that. We probably should have. So, and I think that Matt Eberflus is smart enough to know that was probably a mistake. So I think that they're going to try a little harder. They're going to do a little bit better at doing those kind of things. So now that means that the team, by proxy, becomes just a little bit better. They become a little bit older, et cetera, et cetera. So now Yannick Ngakoue might just be a diamond in the rough, depending on the dollar amount. Now, is it worth paying another guy $25 million to come in and play on this defense? Absolutely not. No circumstance in which we want to bring in a high-priced guy, because we're already going to pay Jalen Johnson. We're already going to pay Montez Sweat. The money's already spent. So I don't think that it's wise to do that. However, Yannick Ngakoue, if he would come back in at a reasonable amount, if he would come back in at a reasonable amount, then here's what you have. You've got Yannick Ngakoue coming in, maybe 10 million. You got Daniel Hunter, which is going to cost you upwards of around 20. You've got Chase Young, who might be available in that 10 range, and then you got Josh Allen that's out there. So I mean, there's a possibility there. So what do you do with it? And I mean, I'll leave it to you guys. You decide whether or not Yannick Ngakoue is that guy, because I think that he is. But further in the market, you've also got a number of different guys out there. Brian Allen comes to mind, because he did play, and we're going to be desperate, by the way, for a center. So bringing in Brian Allen, who's now with the Rams, would be a perfect opportunity. He hasn't played a lot in the last couple of years, but he's been a solid option for a lot of people. He's not somebody who's going to set the world on fire, but he is a solid option. And he probably will come in at about $1 million. So this could be a very important thing right here. And Gabriel Estrada, he says, I hope they don't bring in Chase Young. He's lazy. He's only lazy because he's allowed to be, I think. And I think that with Montez Sweat on the other side and someone pushing him to get the most out of him, I think he might be a viable option. Now, when it comes to Yannick Ngakoue or Chase Young, at this point, I would take Yannick Ngakoue, because if he had his statistically worst year, I think he's only going to get better. Um, and Chase Young, I think the same thing, but I do have some. I am nervous about Chase Young. We'll see what happens. It was good that we ended up with Montez Sweat instead, but that still has to play out. And here's the thing: how good could Chase Young be, or how good could Yannick Ngakoue be with somebody like Chris Jones? Now, I know I just said I don't want to spend a whole bunch of money, but Chris Jones, $32 million, I think. That was like his cap figure was like 32 million for fuck my life. That is absolutely insane. I really hope that we never do anything like that. But you know what? Crazier things have happened. And if you do what I said to do, which is get into this draft and let's really start to rebuild and continue the building process through the draft to make this happen, then you never really know what ends up happening here. So and we do have to consider that this team could be rebuilt pretty inexpensively through that draft right now. And it would be, by the way, you would be sacrificing in many different ways. You would be sacrificing Caleb Williams and that first selection. And you may not like that, but we're not the ones that make that choice, right? I don't like the idea. I would prefer to see Justin Fields return. However, it's not my call. My call is to just talk about it every day and try to put the pieces into place and try to make them make sense when sometimes they don't make sense. And Darth Mark brings up something. Caleb hasn't won the big games. That's you know what you have to consider something like that. That is an important thing to consider. Can he win the big games? And so far, the answer has been no, he can't. That doesn't mean that he can't. It just means that he hasn't so far. But I understand why people would be nervous about it. I also understand why people are nervous about the psychological profile that we've seen so far. I know that there was some underlying complaints about his birthday. I want to say that a few years ago, people were saying that none of the team was even invited to his birthday party. Who cares? Just because, look, and by the way, just because we're on the same team doesn't mean that we're friends. We work together, and I don't hang out with all the people I work with. You know what I mean? So I didn't put too much into that. But then you have the nail painting. I also not really a thing for me, but it's very disrespectful in context to do some. It's not a good look, especially when you're doing it to your rival. However, there's plenty of people out there that were looking at that and they're like, LFG baby, let's go. Because this guy is he takes it serious. Rivalry should be serious. I mean, guys, here's the thing. What if he takes that Green Bay rivalry just as serious? It doesn't mean he's gonna win, by the way. but what if he takes it just as serious? What if that matters to him? What if those rivalries and those important moments are important things? So you have to consider that maybe that's not a good outlier. And when he wore a dress, when he dressed up in, I don't even know if it was a dress, it was like a smock. Um, so what? You know what I mean? Like, he just thought he was doing something that people that like him would think is cool. I mean, sometimes you serve your audience, and it's not the right thing, but you serve your audience. And then you have the emotional outburst that he had with his mother after losing, um, and you know, sometimes sometimes things happen. You know, sometimes you look at it and it didn't happen for you, and you had an expectation, and that expectation went unfulfilled, and here you are. So, but again, I'm way off topic, but um, I think Caleb is. I think he's a good kid. We're gonna have to support him if he's here, by the way. So we shouldn't be too hateful on him. But also, let's look at and to move on here and to get back on track. We were talking about free agents: Adrian Phillips, Tracy Walker. Those two are potential safety replacements, probably inexpensive safety replacements. When you look at the broader market for the available position players in the NFL, the free agencies. I mean, really, you're looking at the safety position, and um, I don't know that Eddie Jackson represent. I mean, there's no way he comes back with 18 million, 14, whatever it counts against him, right? But you could, by the way, make an argument and pop this up here. You can see that Tracy Walker comes in at 8.3. Adrian Phillips comes in about 4. Tayshaun Gibson for 2 million. I mean, there are some options here. None younger until you get to Terrell Edmonds at about 2 million, or Antoine Wingfield. But I mean, when you look at Antoine Wingfield's market value, 18.4 million, cost prohibitive, entirely cost prohibitive. So you're going to have to come up with somebody. So my best option, by the way, is the draft for the safety position, despite that there are going to be a couple of guys that are available in that position coming up. So let me know what you think, by the way, in the comments down below about what this is. And then let's get into it, and let's talk about the draft. So I ended up with 11 picks, by the way. I stuck with my Louisville guy. But not only did I get 11 picks, but I got the 2025 first round pick for Washington and the 2025 New England second round pick in making my trades. Now, what I did in this draft was I traded I traded the number 1 pick for the number 2 pick. And then after I traded the number 2 pick, I then traded down for the number 3 pick. So I made 2 so that I could get a lot of different selections. And with that, what I did is I went with, as best I could to try to kind of shore up what I was looking for here. I went with Marvin Harrison Jr. again in the number 3. And I'm going to keep saying this as long as the day is that I think that he is the one true generational talent in this draft that you cannot not have. Like, I think that he is a must for any team that's looking to get into this draft. And I understand the lure of Caleb Williams. I understand the lure of Drake May. As a matter of fact, at the number 9 selection, Drake May was still available in this draft, which is why I want to tell you, when I did this draft, it was absolutely crazy because I traded down to number 2 and Washington took Joe Alt. Then I traded down to number 3 and the Patriots at number 2 took Caleb Williams. And then I thought, that means that Drake May is going to be gone next day, and then on down the line. Uh-uh. Absolutely not. I took Marvin Harrison, Malik Neighbors, Roma Dunze was still available. There were a lot of different. Brock Bowers was still available, but I went with some defense, and I said, because I was just thinking about the Yannick Ngakoue thing, and I said, you know what? Let's get a game changer. Let's get the best. And it's by the way, there is an argument to be made about who the best edge rusher is. I think most people are leaning with Dallas Turner at this point, maybe Luatu Latu. Jared Verse gets a little bit of conversation about it, but I think people are really kind of leaning on Dallas Turner at this point. Combine starts in 3 days. We're going to get a lot more detail-oriented stuff about the physical abilities of these guys as we go. So I took Dallas Turner at the number 9 spot, and I thought that was a pretty good selection. So now, at this point, I think we're good with Marvin Harrison Jr. and Dallas Turner. And then I jumped in and I took Cameron Kinchins, which I thought was going to fix my safety position, which is why I said that in the draft I would prefer maybe to make that move in the draft. And you can see here from that point I moved down. I got 2 more picks down, and I had traded with both Washington and New England, and I got a good stock of draft picks. Not as much as I would have gotten had I been more active trading, but here we are. But I took Leonard Taylor, defensive tackle from Miami. Now, I do think that Justin Jones gets re-signed, and Andrew Billingsley is going to be here. Gavon Dexter and Andrew Pickens are going to be here, but you still need a little more depth. And I think Leonard Taylor represented an early second-round pick, highly underrated, I think, at this point. A very strong defensive tackle. So I thought that's a good opportunity to add into the lineup. And then at number 40, I was able to get not my guy, but my number 2 selection, and that was Zach Frazier at the center position, thereby fixing what I think is a problem on the offensive line. Not to be outdone, I then moved down in the 67th pick, and I took Patrick Paul, offensive tackle from Houston, because I know that we need some meat, if you will, to cover up for, maybe it's an opportunity to move on from Larry Borum, bring in Patrick Paul, or you keep Larry Borum for a year just in case of emergency, and you start to develop Patrick Paul as quickly as you can to book in Darnell Wright. Braxton Jones, I don't know. I don't want to say that I don't think that Braxton Jones is cutting it, because I think that he continues to improve. I think he continues to get better. And I think that with the right schemes in place, and the one thing to remember here is we're talking about pass protection. This is the number 1 rated running game in the NFL. This line can make holes. So this is this is important, and I think that it was important for me that we got to get a replacement at tackle, but I don't think that we're really as stressed as people think. I think that center position, the transfer, the hiking, the snapping of the ball, that was very important. Zach Frazier represents an upgrade to Lucas Patrick, represents an upgrade to Cody Whitehair, represents an upgrade, maybe to Dan Feeney, but I think Dan Feeney's probably going to be here and probably going to be the starter for next year to start the season as we work somebody into it, or in the event that we go out there and pick up somebody, Connor Williams, Dan Feeney becomes a backup. He is a backup, by the way, so it shouldn't be anything. But Patrick Paul we brought in. Then I needed a running back to replace Deonta Foreman, because I do like Khalil Herbert. And look, I've seen some of these reports here. People are just not understanding. Is it me, by the way? Let me know what you think, guys. Is Khalil Herbert underrated, or am I seeing something that doesn't exist? Because I saw something yesterday from Clay Harbor that said that, despite averaging 4.6 yards per carry, Khalil Herbert was considered just the 14th best running back in the league. And that, it seemed like none of his big stats mattered a whole lot. Like, that seems to me to be a very weird thing. It just doesn't make any sense to me. I think that Khalil Herbert and I think that Roshan Johnson are very, very good players, if you will, and certainly running backs. So I don't get why they're not getting that, um, why they're not getting more attention, if you will. But anyway, so I brought in Jonathan Brooks. He's going to be the backup here. That means Travis Homer becomes my number 3. Maybe Jonathan Brooks becomes the number 3. Solid selection, I think, anyway. And then at the 104, at the next spot, I took Jamari Thrash, wide receiver out of Louisville. Now, Jamari Thrash, fantastic, came from Division II up to Division I, was a superstar for the University of Louisville, had a really good year until he got to the end of the year, and then he had a wrist injury and a hand injury at the same time, and it was very difficult for him to catch the ball, and he was catching the ball one-handed, which started to limit to limit Louisville and their ability to move the ball. However, he was a solid go up and get it type receiver, and I'm reaching into the 4th round to get him, so I feel comfortable taking a receiver as a backup in the 4th round. I've got my bookends. I've got DJ Moore. I've got Marvin Harrison Jr. If I need to, I've got Tyler Scott. I've got most likely Equinemius St. Brown. So I've got a wide receiver core. I just need to add a little bit more depth and somebody who has that potential. So I'm bringing in a potential guy. Then at 111, I went to TCU and got Brandon Coleman as the offensive guard, hoping that maybe he would be able to sub in as needed as a reasonable center just in case. But I'm also developing the guard in case Nate Davis or Tevin Jenkins don't work out or get into free agency, because we're going to have to be planning for that at some point soon. And then number 123, I took a defensive tackle again after Leonard Taylor of Mason Smith, because we need to start pressing. Justin Jones may or may not be here. Andrew Billingsley, I like him. Again, this is number one ranked rushing defense as well as a number one ranked rushing offense. We love our running games here, and we need to have more people who can shore that up. So, in keeping with that, we do also need people who can rush. And, finding Mason Smith would be a good get, I think, in the fourth round. And then Matt Goncalves, offensive tackle out of Pittsburgh. So we're picking up another offensive tackle. So far, we got an offensive center, 2 offensive tackles, an offensive guard, and 2 defensive tackles. So we're shoring up our lines quite a bit, I think, in this draft. And we picked up the 2025 Washington first round pick and the 2025 New England second round pick. So I think that kind of made a pretty big move right there. So looks like in context here, I think that draft kind of captures everything that you wanted, or at least if you are if you're a fan of Caleb Williams, or if you're a fan of not taking, or if you're a fan of not taking Caleb Williams, or if you're a fan of Justin Fields, if you see the problems and you don't like the problems, or you just like Justin Fields, then I think that this draft really encompasses everything that you want. You got Marvin Harrison Jr., the generational guy in the draft. You got your center in Zach Frazier. It's not Jackson Powers Johnson, but hey, you know what? You're going to have to move up in order to get him. He continues to move up in the draft, and his ability is getting more and more and more and more and more. He's getting higher up in this draft. And you got Cameron Kinchins to replace Eddie Jackson. You still have free agency, by the way. We still have a lot of different options that are going to be available. But I think that in this context, what we really did is we took, this is going to be about a $20 million payroll. And I want to say the Bears right now have about $70 million, $77 million or so that they're going to be able to play with here. So, you're adding this right here in 15 or 16 million, I want to say. So 15, 16 million in payroll for this, which means you got 50 something left. You signed Jalen Johnson, and then you got another 25, 30 million dollars. Now you can really start to fill in some of these positions of real need. And just in case, and I did say Justin, just in case you decide that you're going to run it back, then you're going to have some capital and some draft capital for the next year, because you just kind of improved your team with a very cheap. We can actually do that. Darnell Mooney drop rate. 1.7% was his rate. It's going to be coming advanced stats, so we need RotoWire here for that. Also saw it was a drop rate of 3.3. Here we go. After contact, after catch. His drop percentage in 2023 is 3.3%, in line with all previous years. So that was in line with his yardage of 1,499 in 2021, and then also 2022 and 2023. So really kind of trending. I don't think his drop percentage is any better or worse. But his catch percentage, 50% versus 65. So I think there were some improvements that really needed to be. And you can see right here, his drop rate is in the blue. The blue, it means okay or average. Air yards per game, 43.9. That's average. Average depth of target is average. Where he excelled is team air yards, team targets, and average yards after the catch. So he did excel at some of these different statistics, but he also had a low catch rate, targeted route, and average yards per route run. So he doesn't rank very well in certain categories, but that's Darnell Mooney for you. All right. So, but by the way, here's the thing. I if we were to run it back with Darnell Mooney, I would have no problem with that. The problem that I would have with Darnell Mooney is that Darnell Mooney costs $13 million thereabout. Maybe you can get him for about $8 million. but it's more likely that Darnell Mooney is a $13 million man, and that is very, very expensive. And I don't think that there's any possibility of fitting him in for that amount of money because I mean, let's face it, you can go out and you can get Curtis Samuels, you can go get somebody else a lot cheaper than you can get Darnell Mooney at this point. Darnell Mooney's on the upside, and we should at least consider let this guy go out and make his money. Let this guy go out and become whoever he's going to be. And most probably, it's just not going to be with the Chicago Bears because it doesn't make any sense to continue uh, uh, bringing him in or bringing quote unquote the heat, if you will, because um, because I don't think that he's I don't think that he's um, I don't think that I don't think the value exists. Darnell Mooney. That's all I'm saying. I don't think the value exists. However, I think the intensity, the desire, and the will to be here certainly do exist. So we'll see. But if we can add Mooney in the stat, well, see, you're not. That's the thing. He's worth $13 million at this point. Like his market value is significant at this point. So you have to consider you have to consider what he's worth. So it costs money. It's going to cost the Chicago Bears a lot in order to bring him back. Here's just to get an idea here. Here's Darnell Mooney, and here's his projected market value. 10.4 million annual salary, but people in similar positions as him, Hunter Renfrow 16 million, Allen Robinson 15 million, Tim Patrick 11 million, 3-year contract 33 million, like Jacoby Myers 11 million. So he's in that range right there based on his calculated value, 13.564 million dollars with 10 million counting towards the salary cap. So I just, I think that I think he's going to be very expensive to keep around. So, what's up, Rob? I think he's just going to be too cost prohibitive in order to bring around. So I think if we're looking at free agents, then there are some free agents that we could consider. If we go to wide receiver here, and let's update this just a little bit, you get an idea here. Like I think Mike Evans, Odell Beckham, Curtis Samuel, Tyler Boyd, Cedric Wilson. Now Curtis Samuel is going to come a little bit less expensive because he didn't play out well. I think his market value. It comes out at about 11 million. Now 11.5 is the annual salary, but I think he's not going to make as much on this next on his next rip here. So, oops. All right, so but we could come in here and pick up somebody in the 3 to 4 to 5 million range. I mean, how about Randall Cobb? I mean, he's still 33 years old, but he's a situational guy that could probably make some big plays. Michael Pittman is down here at 2.5 million with a market value. What's Pittman's market value? Ooh, shit, he's going to cost way too much. Forget that. For whatever reason, I can't get this thing to go backwards and forwards. Could be that. Oh, by the way, Chase Claypool's out here in the market for 1.6. Oh God, I can't even say with a straight face. Jamal Agnew, McCole Hardman, a couple $1 million. Get these guys in for a couple $1 million. See what they can do. Those are some possibilities. Um, Projected. Ooh, Holmes Mahomes was drafted right around where he was projected. He was projected as about the third best or second best quarterback in that draft. Now, I do think, by the way, Mitchell Trubisky was not the first guy. Like I think that was a bad call entirely. So, that was horrible. Yeah, man, Claypool. We can get Claypool for 1 million. By the way, guys, we should point this out. Chase Claypool was a failed experiment by Ryan Poles, and he took a shot on a receiver. And Chase Claypool, if you remember famously, and we really kind of, I think a lot of us kind of felt bad for him when this happened. But when he was leaving, we were like, yeah, well, you deserve to leave. You're not even getting any passes thrown your way. And we had a lot of stuff that we were saying about Chase Claypool, like, yeah, with this horrible offense, and no wonder you want to go and stuff like that. I heard that a lot. And guess what? Chase Claypool then proceeded to go to Miami, where the team said, "Oh, this guy's great. He's going to be awesome." Chase Claypool had one catch for Miami. So, I think it should be, I think it should be noted that this was just a ridiculous, it's just ridiculous. Here's the statistics here. This is 2023. Played for Miami. He had 8 total receptions. 7 of them were with Chicago before he was traded. So, I mean, this guy was just a what the French call a fucking disaster. So, uh-oh. Yeah, listen, guys, we're all look, I like to say this, we're all Chicago Bears fans. We are all here for the betterment of the Chicago Bears. We don't always all agree with how that looks. We don't always agree with who that represents. What team might that be? By the way, make sure you hit the like button on the way in. Steve Mongo McMichael is home, by the way. So yeah, he's a I think he was just a head case. All the talent in the world, but it's everybody else's look, we've all had that person in our life, or that friend in our life where it's always like, no, we blah 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 blah. You know what I mean? No, I don't think that's true. I mean, I think you're right, because we do get polarized and we have our opinion. My opinion, Leonidas, is I am a Justin Fields fan. I like the character, the content, his makeup. I like who he is and what he's represented so far as the quarterback of the Chicago Bears. I've not been happy, however, with the wins and the losses. And we have to recognize that, we have to be honest about it. So in the event that we move on from him, I'm okay with that. I understand the need. I understand that it is, this is a business at the end of the day. And, he cost $6 million this year. And then next year, 22 million, I want to say between 22 and 25. If he makes the Pro Bowl, up to 27 million. So he's very expensive if we're going to keep going. And you could say, well, so what? But then after that, I mean, that, by the way, is if you take your team option and you get him for that. But then after that, he's an unrestricted free agent. You got to pay him 35 to 45 million a year, and that eats up a lot of payroll. So I would understand why somebody, if you're in doubt about him being the franchise guy, that maybe you want to reset. Like, I understand the reason why you want to do that. I'm not oblivious to the product on the field. I see all the greatness. And here's the other part, Leonidas. Yeah, but the thing is, we see Caleb Williams, and look, for every Justin Fields error or mistake or blown play or something like that, I can show you the same thing from Caleb Williams. It doesn't escape anybody that the same problem is happening. And by the way, he has a better throwing mechanism. He has a better throwing mechanic, and he makes quicker decisions. By that, I mean Caleb Williams, than Justin Fields does. But I also saw Justin Fields actually making a much better go of what he was doing until Luke Getsy got involved. And I think that no offense to Luke Getsy, by the way, I don't like Luke Getsy as as an offensive coordinator for Justin Fields, but I also have to recognize um, that he also represented the guy that made Justin Fields even have a shot. I mean, here's the thing. If you go ask Chase Daniel, if you go ask anybody smart, Justin Fields kind of balled out to end the year, right? Like, he really started to show. He made this a very difficult decision. It probably was not it probably was not a it probably was a difficult decision, but not an impossible decision, and not really that bad of a decision for the Bears until Justin Fields really started to close out the year and do a lot better. So Justin, to his own credit, made this a more difficult decision for a team. But let me just posit this. These are the advanced stats for Justin Fields by quarter. And I continue to say this. He had a 112 quarterback rating in the first quarter. That's where Luke Getsy schemed his plays. That's where Luke Getsy did his thing. Eco Bean says Fields won 5 games all year long. Yeah, so did the Bears when he was playing for them. And one of the things that we forget is that it's a team game, right? Because while Fields won 5 games all year long and had 10 fumbles, Caleb Williams only won 7 games, but he started every game. If Justin Fields had started every game, he would have won 7 games too. He would have won those 2 games that Tyson Bagent won. Might even won one of those. So he might have had 8 wins versus Caleb's 7. And for every 10 fumbles that Justin Fields had, Caleb Williams had 8 fumbles. So it shouldn't escape us that we're looking at things and we're not being honest about what we're seeing. The thing that we're seeing is, number one, Luke Getsy really schemed out a good game at the beginning of each one of these games. He drew up the first 15 plays, which is what we do now. He drew up he did a good job. And then running it through the second quarter, in case you didn't get the ball too much, 91.4. It's the 53.4 in the fourth quarter. This is the Justin Fields stat right here that everybody should be alarmed by. In the fourth quarter, Justin Fields was 47 of 92 for 51 completion percentage, 3 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, um, and he had some long passes, by the way, but not nearly as many towards the end of the game. And by the way, look at this. I mean, guys, it cannot escape you. By the way, when you're looking at these stats, like, you have to be honest about what you're seeing. And if we can just take off the I don't like Justin or I don't like Caleb for just a second here. Justin Fields had 15 big passes, 20 plus yard passes in the first and second quarter, but only had 9 in the fourth and 6 in the third. That's an example of a conservative offense. He had half in the entire second half as he did in the first half. So his big plays were happening right here. And here's the thing. Here's all the sacks. Here's all the sacks that Justin Fields was getting they were in the first half. They were not in the fourth quarter. They were not in the second half. However, you can also say that he was getting sacked a lot more in the fourth quarter. You got to consider that some of this comes down to him making slower decisions. Like, there is some responsibility that Justin Fields has to have for not making decisions as quickly. So you have to you have to be able to see that. But then you have to also understand Luke Getsy was calling a play for a drop back passer, and Justin Fields clearly was not that guy. Now, Justin Fields is probably an MVP type caliber player in this league, but he hasn't been served properly by the Chicago Bears. And even if Justin Fields is that guy, even if he is him, even if he is that generational sort of quarterback in this league, kind of like we're talking about Caleb Williams, even if he could be that person, it may not be with the Chicago Bears. If he is that person, if you can work on him speeding up what he does, if you can speed up his decision making, and just get him to throw the ball and just unleash it, guys. Make the play, make the play, make the play. Give him the opportunity. And, like, we've always said, well, he didn't have any options to throw to. Well, he had a couple. Were they double covered sometimes? Yeah. Did that make it even more difficult? Yeah. But Justin Fields also owns some of that. He has to make good reads. And you can look at the tape. Like, the tape doesn't lie. You can see play after play after play. And again, I implore you, if you are curious, go just watch Chase Daniel break down Justin Fields. He'll do some behind the back thing where you'll be able to see what's going on the field. Like, you can see what's happening. And when you see what's happening, then you realize that Justin Fields missed a lot of very easy plays and a lot of very easy throws. Now, it could be that he was confused by the offense that he was dealing with. It could be that he just, he didn't comprehend the scheme that Luke Getsy was trying to do, and that it was just not above his pay grade, but it took him longer because he's more of an athletic type. I mean, it could be. And it could be that Shane Waldron understands that, and Shane Waldron is ready to ball out with him, and that Shane Waldron is chomping at the bit to get the opportunity to coach him. It could be, but we don't know. We just don't know yet. But we're going to find out very, very soon. So, you know what I mean? Like, this is it's going to be crazy. Like, I think that we should at least recognize that it is going to get like super, super crazy leading up to it. We got 3 more days and the combine starts. So that's when we're really going to start to get some idea. Um, and once we get a little bit of clarity, once we get a little bit more, once we get, once it starts to kind of play its way out, and we're going to get an evaluation of what Caleb Williams looks like, and we're not going to get the Bears evaluation. We're going to get the media's evaluation of, and we don't know, by the way, if Caleb Williams is going to show up. We still don't know that. Or Drake May for that matter. We don't know if they're going to show up. They don't have anything to prove, I don't think. So very difficult to come in there and do that. We're going to find out a lot about JJ McCarthy. We're going to find out a lot about Jaden McDaniels. We're going to find out a lot about some of these guys that we're looking for. And, when we do, we'll have a clearer understanding. I mean, here's the thing. If Marvin Harrison looks even better in the combine than he looked on the field already, he might make that decision more difficult by a little bit. If there's some conversations with Shane Waldron, and Shane Waldron is feeling Justin Fields, then that might change things. But we don't know. We don't know. And Leonidas, I don't think that's a fair assessment because we're not getting there yet. Oh, wait a minute. Darth is actually the one that said it. Funny thing is, Caleb is starting to fall off on the boards. He's only falling off on a few of the boards. He's not really falling off like everywhere. And, it's not like this giant cascade down. It's like he is falling off of some people's board, but it's also because some of us are just getting bored and we're making wild selections when we do it. So, I mean, like, I come over here to this mock draft simulator every single day, what I'm looking to do. I mean, like, and I'll show you. Like every day, I'm looking here at, I got 7-round draft. I'm going to fast here. The one thing that I have been sure of so far is that my preference is to pick up more draft capital over Caleb Williams. And that I don't have to like Justin Fields, by the way. I just have to trust Justin Fields that he can do the job. So I have, basically I have the option here of draft New England or Washington. And if I accept the offer here, then let's reject that offer here. Caleb Williams goes first on my draft here. And now I have an option of what I want to pick, right? But when I hit refresh and redo it again, Caleb Williams doesn't always go first. But now, if I wanted Caleb Williams first, I'm looking at it every day. Now I'm thinking like, what if I just went Drake May at number 2 because I like him better, right? Now I've just changed my entire draft. I don't know if it's to the better or not, but now I've got Drake May and Roma Dunzy. So boom. Now I'm in the 36th pick and I've got Cooper DeJean from Iowa. Now I've got my safety. I've got more picks here. I've got Amarius Mims, the offensive tackle out of Georgia. He's a good option here, but I need an edge rusher, right? I still need an edge rusher. So who's that guy that I was talking about the other day? Darius Robinson, the edge rusher out of Missouri. Like, I have an opportunity to change the way that I'm doing this. And that's what I think people are doing. I think that people are looking at some of these drafts and they're like, what? I can't just pick Caleb Williams every day, and then somebody does that and somebody else was like, hey, what if I didn't pick him? You know what I mean? And then somebody else was like, oh, what if I didn't pick him? So, I think that that's what you're looking at. And then let's just say, bam, we got Cedric Van Pran in our draft here. So now we have a center. We've got a safety. We've got an edge rusher. We've got Roma Dunzy. We've got Drake May. Like we really kind of came up with a really good draft here, if you will. So now we need some backups here. We need Xavier Legette or Chris Jenkins, national champion. So anyway, I just think that people are looking at their drafts and they're saying to themselves, I'm not sure I want this guy. I'm not sure I want this guy, et cetera, et cetera. So I think that's what's happening. Anyway, my time is up, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I appreciate each and every one of you that you take the time to come check me out every day. I appreciate that so much. And thank you for having the argument. It's healthy for us to debate what is going on here in this wild, wild space. And I hope that at the end we get some clarity as we get into this market and as we start to really kind of feel out the players in this draft, and we get to the scouting combine. I think it's going to be fascinating to see how it plays out. I'm super excited about it. I hope you are too. If you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel, and make sure you hit the like button on the way out. Helps push me up in the algorithm. And if you will, I'm going to play the outro. And after the outro, if you would, just leave a comment on the video. It helps the video trend, and that's very important to me. I do rely on this stuff. So you guys have a good day, and we'll talk to you again on Monday.
I can't wait till Friday. Everybody's getting sideways.